Well, we're picking up Tadiwa. He's one of my youth in our church. He's coming along for the drive video. He just thinks that I'm picking him up to take him to church. So we'll see a big smile on his face when he comes in, when he goes, "What's going on?"
Morning.
Morning. You sis looking after someone?
Yes. We have my grandma and my two little cousins came from Adelaide.
Because I suddenly realised that I don't have room in the back.
Oh, yeah. What is that?
That's for the cats. Yeah. Anyway, Tadiwa, welcome to the drive. This is one of my little YouTube things that I do.
Yeah, okay.
Do I have your permission?
Yeah, sure. Fine.
Sure. So what I do, I don't know if you've ever seen them, but whenever I go to a Bible study or go to do something, not every single time, but just maybe once a week, or I'll hook up my camera and I call it the drive. And while I'm driving, I just talk about whatever's on my mind. And I just make it up as I go. Not make it up as in fake, just whatever's on my mind, I start discussing with the folks at home. Philosophical questions, religious questions, world questions. And it usually goes for about 3 minutes. So would you like to participate?
Sure.
So we can talk about anything, as long as it leads to something about God.
Okay.
That's how it works. So I just always talk about whatever, problems in the world, problems with the youth. And then you lead it to something encouraging, something like that. So do you have something on your mind that bugs you, irks you, or something that you could talk to the public about? Because being a youth, that's a good perspective. Not that you don't have to talk about youth, because a lot of the time that's all they ever want the youth to talk about is the youth. But you may have ideas of many other things. So whatever's on your mind. So what is it?
Well, probably right now I feel like it's like the numbers, like the youth numbers in church, like the amount that we have. Like,
is it too much?
Yeah, it's too much.
Is it getting overwhelming?
Nah, like I just feel like there isn't enough of us to like feel welcome. You know what I'm saying? So when like a new person comes in, they'll just see there's one or two. Yeah. And
it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's sad when you've got a really good youth leader or someone and they have to step aside. And then there's just a couple of youth left and so forth. It must be hard being youth in a church, because it's at an age where a lot of them start to complain, I don't know if I want to go to church and all that sort of thing.
That's when you start thinking about not going to church anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Because how important is it, let me ask you, how important is it in church to have other youth? Or is it okay for you just to go and worship with 80-year-olds or 60-year-olds and it doesn't bother you because you're focused on God? Or whether you're focused on God or not, it's good to have your own age. Because they're going through the same things as you. So, how important is it?
Well, I feel like maybe for me not as much, but for new youth, like kids who just come in off the street or from different churches or something like that. Like, how do they see our church? What's their perspective on our church? Yeah. When they walk in and they see predominantly over 50-year-olds and one or two other youth, what do you think would go through their head when they've coming along to church, they've heard about it, whatever, and then they walk in and see one or two youth there? Maybe they'll feel like there's a reason why there isn't that many.
Yeah, what's the reason?
Yeah, exactly.
What's happening that I don't know about? Is this a cult? Is this weird? Is it just for old people? Because you imagine if we had 20 youth, all between the ages of 13 to 18, 20, and we've got youth nights and things are happening. When you invite, because that's the other thing, you don't know whether to invite your friends because you're like, what am I inviting them to?
Exactly.
One or two people? Whereas if you've got Friday night youth nights, milkshakes and things to eat, and maybe a really engaging Christian movie, which you get a lot now, that are very much youth orientated and engaging, not boring. And you've got icebreakers, all these things. You've got some good fun things happening with youth hanging out together. It makes a difference, doesn't it? Like, hey man, come along to our youth night. Oh, that's Christian. Oh yeah, but we have a great time. And there's lots of boys and lots of girls there, and we interact. How much easier is that?
Like, you don't have to start with, well, we're going to talk about God. You could be like, we're going to have milkshakes, we're going to have songs, we're going to watch a movie. But you don't specify what movie you're going to watch, you know?
So it's about hanging out with your own age group. It's really not about the movies and all these things. It's young people, middle-aged people. Let's face it, we all like to hang out with our age group because that's what's happening in our life, and they're probably going through similar things. And that's what's important. It's not like just, oh, you're old, I'm young, but it's about relatability. You think, how can an 80-year-old relate to a millennial in this modern day and age, even though they were young once, but they weren't young once in a society and the internet and every challenge that we've got these days. And so you really want to specifically be with someone who understands you now. Elderly can understand you on principle, of course, because the principle of what you're going through and different things are always the same, things we think about. But many things around us and influences change, don't they? How do we get from that amount of youth then to get to a stage where it'll attract more youth? Because you've got to use bait to catch a fish. And if you've got no bait, you've got to use a lure. and so what do we use as a lure to bring youth here? That's the question, isn't it? I think, like when I'm starting a karate club in a town, it's just like that. Because at first, I go along there and it's empty. And I'm advertising, there's nobody there. At least a couple of times I've had my girls there. But it's hard to get something off the ground. When people walk in, there's 20, 30 people training, they're like motivated. Whoa, this is cool. But when you're empty, they think, who are you? Are you a good instructor or a bad instructor? And there's one of those over 50-year-olds getting in the way. So the best thing to do, I found, is that you've got to weather the storm, but at the same time you've got to advertise really heavily to try to get in that first night or second night that you're running a program 6, 8, 10, 20 people to come and try it. And out of that you might get a core of 5 or 6 and you're off you go. You know what I mean? You've started. So I think with the youth, the thing is, if you're just sitting there hoping that someone will turn up, it's not going to ever work. I think the best thing in a church like this is that we would do some heavy advertising, telling them about either a Saturday night social, Friday night youth night, or something like that. You probably start on Saturday night because of the whole Sabbath thing, and then you can move it to a Friday night. You could actually have 2 nights. Saturday night is the get me in, get them started, and then invite them to the more spiritual Friday night. And heavily advertise, and this is I think probably, of course we have to pray for God to impress those ones, but I think this is the only way. If you're just waiting for 1 or 2 to come in, no matter what sort of program you got, if no one knows about it and your youth are too embarrassed to invite people to 2 people, then you're never going to grow. I think you got to try to do things big. You got to hit it hard. Do you like that idea?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Very good idea.
Okay, well, thanks Tadiwa for coming along on the drive with me to church this morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And remember to please subscribe down in the right hand corner of your screen, and come along with us next time. Bless you.